The kiss to the frog. Once upon a time, in a distant kingdom, there was a young and beautiful princess. She was born to fill her parents' lives with joy and laughter. During the first years of her life, Princess Seraphina was simply perfect, but when she reached the age of 5, nobody could deny that the little girl was somewhat eccentric. If you ask me, I would have to say that the fault lay entirely with her parents and the other adults around her. They liked to whisper and look at her from afar, when the only ones responsible for the strange behaviour were themselves. Because how can a girl grow into a healthy woman if she is told from a young age that she has to look for a frog to kiss, and that it will become a prince? We met on a bright Sunday afternoon. She had gone for a walk in the royal gardens, wearing a simple pink dress, a modest grey cloak, and her wild red hair blowing in the wind. When the princess first saw me, I was splashing around, drenching my dry green skin in a shallow puddle. When our eyes met, her excited look made it clear she saw me as the answer to all her prayers. Then she ran after me with unbridled passion. It goes without saying that seeing myself as the object of that outburst of loving madness did not make me happy. It wasn't to discriminate or anything. She was a very nice, friendly girl, always smiling. But I have to confess, love between species is not my thing. I leave humanophilia to the most eccentric among us. At that moment, I had no choice but to flee as quickly as I could, jumping at the maximum speed my creature legs allowed. In case you haven't noticed, I'm a frog. In this specific case, I am the creature that a princess runs to, wanting to kiss me, thinking her gesture of true love will turn me into a beautiful prince. So, since we all know that such a thing does not exist, and that the only thing the princess would achieve by kissing me was leaving me drooling even more than usual, I continued on my way toward the forest, fast and furious. The princess surprised me by being able to keep up, and just when I thought all was lost, we reached the clearing in the woods. I didn't know where to go when the loud cry of a baby distracted me. Upon discovering a woman who had been struck by a branch, the princess turned her attention away from me and went to help the poor mother, who could not care for her son because she was injured. During those moments when Seraphina was busy helping out for the good of others, her face changed, her gaze turned serious, and she almost didn't seem crazy at all. Thankful that the princess was no longer after me, I went into the forest to the waters of a stream where I let myself go, feeling relieved. The following week, when I returned to the royal garden, I was aware of the danger of being there. I convinced myself that the princess wouldn't notice me. Even if she did, she wouldn't recognize me as the same frog. But her madness surprised me again, for not only did she recognize me, but she seemed more convinced than ever to hunt me down and turn me into a prince whom I would never be. This time, the distraction that saved my physical and moral integrity was some men who were trying to build a dock on the river that ran through the middle of the forest. The princess, being a great enthusiast of puzzles and enigmas, found it more enjoyable to help people rather than continue chasing after me. Once again, I was saved from harm. Anyone would say that it was I who was crazy for always returning to the garden of the princess, but the reality was that I had already gotten used to her eccentricities, and I was convinced that, at the end of the day, she was only using me as an excuse to flee from the oppressive limits of the castle. Thus, little by little, story after story, collaboration after collaboration, the princess grew and became familiar with the lives of her subjects, getting to know their needs and desires. When the day of the death of the princess's elderly father arrived, everyone already knew that there was no need for a prince or a frog. There was a queen ready enough to rule. The inhabitants gave her the support she needed to reign alone, and with the blessing of her advisory council, she became the first woman to govern those lands. On the day of her coronation, still wearing her heavy crown on her head and a velvet cape on her shoulders, the new queen stepped out into the garden. As always, I was waiting for her in the usual puddle. This time, when she came closer, I didn't move away from her. She bent down and took me gently in her hands. With a whisper, she said, "Thank you," and planted a kiss on my head. Of course, I didn't become a prince or anything like that. But from that moment on, I thought it was possible that the queen might not be so crazy after all.